Hello everybody, my name is Brady and we are back with another React video, and today we're going to be checking out Geography Now. You guys suggested this channel to me when I was asking for geography related videos and channels to check out, and I'm really excited about it. One of you was even nice enough to explain to me how the channel works. So they produce videos on all sorts of different countries, presumably they're going to do all the countries, and they do them in alphabetical order. Well, this is A we're doing, but I think they're on like S or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but I'm very excited about this, and I want to do them if I do decide to continue checking out their stuff and I really like it. I want to do them in order. So I'm starting with Afghanistan, and then I'll go down the A's, then the B's, then the C's, and I think that would be really cool because it would make me learn a little bit more about countries that I may not give a second thought to. If I just went to the countries that I thought, oh, I know that country, I want to know more about that country, I may end up overlooking a whole bunch. So we're going to go through the A's first. How many A's are there? We got Afghanistan, Australia, Albania, Argentina. There's a decent amount of A's, so we've got plenty to work through, and plenty that I don't know as much as I would like to about. Afghanistan should be cool to start. It's a country that my country has been in conflict with for a very long time, so I think it would be good for me to at least understand a little bit about Afghanistan, so this should be cool. Let's see what they've got.
Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of Geography Now. We're going to go through the list of all the internationally recognized sovereign nations of the world, and we're going to do it alphabetically, which means our first episode is going to be on Afghanistan.
Cool.
It's time to learn geography.
Now! That's the intro song. I hope you liked it. I worked really hard recording it with my friend Bill. So, today's going to be Afghanistan. I'm actually really glad we're getting this country covered because it's a very complex and deep country and we can't cover all of it in 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to do my best. Before we get into anything though, let's dissect the flag.
Ooh.
The Afghani flag is a tricolor band of three different colors, red, black, and green. The red representing the blood of those who fought for Afghanistan, the black representing the obscure and difficult past that they've had, and the green representing hope and a future, and Islam as it is the state religion.
You guys know that I'm big into flags, but I don't really know that much about the stories behind them. That's why some people give me crap for doing my flag review series, because I just kind of judge them from a graphic design standpoint. But it is good to understand what the symbolism means. Like, even if you don't buy into symbolism that much and you don't give it too much credit and importance or whatever in your personal life, it's good to understand what other people value. I find that in the Middle East in general, like in a lot of predominantly Muslim countries, these colors are very common. So it's kind of good to understand how they are significant to different people, and they may not even mean the same thing to the different countries in the region. Like green, I know that has like that's a very important color in Islam, so I'd imagine that one's a little bit more universal when it comes to the region. But I'm curious to see if there are some different rationales behind it when we get into different countries from the region. So that would be cool. It's not a bad flag. It's not the best flag, but it's not bad from a graphic design standpoint. I think there's definitely worse out there. There's worse in the region.
In the middle of the flag is the Afghani emblem. Now this is where things get a little difficult, so bear with me. On the emblem is a mosque with two little miniature Afghani flags on the side, which by the way makes Afghanistan one of the only two countries in the world that has a flag with miniature versions of its own flag on its own flag on the side.
Oh yeah, that's kind of redundant, isn't it? I've never been a huge fan of that. That's like, I was never a fan of like having the little squares in the corner of flags that feel like an attachment. I was never a huge fan of like the crests or these sort of things. I feel like the flag should stand alone outside of crests and little emblems and all that stuff. But like that's especially, and it's fun because they don't put it would be funnier if they tried to put like a mini version of the emblem on the flag, but they don't do that. So but that would be very interesting. I assume he's gonna go into like what the writing on it is, because that's what I'm interested in. I hate writing on flags typically. but I just love how language is written over there. Like, I just think it's just a pretty looking language written down. So I kind of forgive it a lot of the time. Like, where otherwise I would crap on a flag for having writing on it. This case, it's like, that looks kind of cool.
Side are sheaves of wheat. On the top is the Shahada, or the Muslim creed. On the bottom is the name of Afghanistan, written in Arabic. And on top of that is the Arabic year of 1298, written in Arabic numerals, which also in the standard Gregorian calendar is 1919, which was the year that Afghanistan was relinquished from its British protectorate status and became an internationally recognized sovereign nation known as Afghanistan.
Sick.
In terms of its political geography, Afghanistan is located in the Central Asian region, surrounded by 6 other countries, technically 7 if you consider the Jammu Kashmir region part of India, but Pakistan will tell you it totally is not, but we'll discuss that in another video.
Okay, like, and he said he was going into the internationally recognized countries, and there is a little bit of confusion with a few different countries there, and I'm curious to how he's going to handle some of that. Some countries would tell you, like, this place isn't legitimate. Some place would say this is, and some will say I own this thing. So, like, I guess that's where the political section of things go. But that's such a fun yet tragic part of geography. So Afghanistan being landlocked, I'm curious if that's going to come into play. Like, I'm fascinated for some reason with landlocked countries. There's just something very interesting about countries that don't have direct access to, like, the ocean or whatever. That, like, there's got to be, like, that's got to impact them somehow. And I've always, for some reason, thought that was so interesting. I never really thought about Afghanistan as such, but yeah, but, like, I've always looked at some other countries and thought, like, wow, that must be interesting. How do they manage?
Now, when you look at the shape of Afghanistan, it just kind of looks like a big amorphous blob in the middle of nowhere. But then when you look at the northeast, you start to see this long, narrow stretch of land that kind of reaches out into the Hindu Kush mountain range. And you might ask yourself, why does Afghanistan have that long panhandle? And the reason why is kind of technically because England and Russia. See, back in the 1800s, the British and the Russians were competing against each other to see who could amass the largest global empire in terms of colonization and influence. Russia took over what are now known as many of the Central Asian countries as Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, while the British took over many of the South Asian regions such as India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. Now, when it came to Afghanistan, things were a little difficult because the Afghani people really did not want to be taken over. It was also a really crucial point on the map because essentially it was the area where the British and Russian empires got really close to each other. Eventually, the British kind of took over at the end of the 19th century, much to the reluctance of the Afghanis. However, they still had to distinguish the borders between Afghanistan and the rest of the other nations in the empire. When it came to Pakistan, or back then British India, the British decided to use the Durand Line, and then when it came to the Russian Empire, they decided to use the Panj and Palmyr rivers. Now, the thing is, when both the empires drew these lines, they technically didn't touch each other in the northeast and left a huge, long, narrow buffer zone, which is now today known as the Wakhan Corridor. By default, it was given to Afghanistan, and to this day, the Wakhan Corridor plays a very crucial role in Afghanistan's geography because for a very, very small 20 or so mile border at the very end of the Wakhan Corridor is a border with China. Now, I know 20 miles doesn't really sound like much, but in the world of geopolitical analytics, that can be a very important thing.
Proximity to China is extremely important, especially right now. They're an incredible trade power. I could only imagine how, like, that has historically impacted them. So far, he's done a little bit of physical, a little bit of political geography. I like that it seems like he does like the different kinds of geography. Sometimes geography gets boiled down to, like, the physical geography, sometimes the political stuff, but, like, a lot of the cultural stuff doesn't always get taken into account. He's already touched on some cultural stuff so far, but I like that it seems like he's jumping from the different forms of geography and really showing how diverse a place is when you look at it through a geographic lens, which a geographic lens is not a narrow thing. There are so many different ways to do it.
Now, when it comes to physical geography,
here's an actual, like, physical geography section. Even though he did a little bit of physical geography, like, it tied more into the political stuff. But here's actual physical geography. Got it.
Afghanistan has a large, vast array of different kinds of landscapes. However, the large portion of the country is actually mountainous, with the Hindu Kush mountain range dominating the northeast regions and the central regions of the country. In fact, the snowmelt from these mountains accounts for the vast majority of the complex, immense river systems that flow throughout Afghanistan, allowing their country to have lush green valleys where most of their agricultural sector can be found. Now,
There we go. I'm happy about that because I mentioned the fact that it's landlocked, and sometimes landlocked countries will have little water problems, and some manage it, some don't, and that's actually really cool that it has like that complex system, and it stems from the mountains. I really enjoy that he went into that, because that like perfectly answers like the spirit of the question that I had earlier. I love when that stuff happens in these things, when these videos just come together. I'm liking this guy so far.
Despite all the rivers and water reservoirs, Afghanistan still remains a relatively dry nation. In fact, the further south you go, closer to the Kandahar region, almost immediately after you pass the Dori River, you hit the Sistan Basin, which is basically what geologists speculate may have actually been a large body of water at some point, but is now a dry, desolate desert wasteland. Nonetheless, with the arable land that it does have, Afghanistan is still able to produce some of the world's best produce, including pomegranates, almonds, apricots, and poppy. That's right, for the past few hundred years, Afghanistan has been a leading nation in opium production.
Okay, I didn't understand that was opium. Okay, I feel a little slow on this, but okay, that makes perfect sense.
In terms of its demographics, cool. Afghanistan has just about 31 million people, or roughly a little bit smaller than the size of Canada. The slight majority of these people identify as ethnically Pashtun, or people from the Pashtun tribe. They speak the Pashtun language known as Pashto. Now, there are some other ethnic minorities like Uzbeks and Tajiks and Hazaras. However, the interesting thing is that the majority of the people, about 85%, including the Pashtuns, speak Dari. Dari is actually a dialect of the Persian language Farsi. So that means someone who speaks Dari can actually interchangeably travel between Afghanistan and Iran without really having any trouble being understood. Interesting side note, there is one last living Jew living in all of Afghanistan. I'm not even joking. His name is Zablon Simintov. He lives in Kabul. He used to own a restaurant, and he maintains the last synagogue in all of Afghanistan. The locals there know him just as that one Jew guy, and they're cool with him. They're just like, hey, Zablon. Which brings us to our final...
That's interesting. The last Jew, like, does he mean like literally the last practicing Jew? Because like if he maintains a synagogue, I assume that somebody comes to see him, or maybe it's just him hanging out in the empty synagogue the whole time. That is a very fun fact right there. And the fact that it is so minimal there, like I understand that Judaism is it has a complex political position, not just in the region, but all over the world. Like it seems like they can never really catch a break. It's still interesting that it is broken down so much to that one, and they're cool with them. The fact that they're cool with them and that it's so minimalistic, like that's very interesting and definitely worth going further into. It's fascinating.
Final segment, the friend zone.
Oh, gotcha. I get it.
Afghanistan has a very interesting way in how it interacts with other countries. Now, because of the whole language thing, Afghanis and Iranians have typically kind of had somewhat of a cultural similarity and resonance with each other. However, they also have had some controversy. Now, Pakistan and India are the biggest business partners of Afghanistan. However, again, there's some drama there as well. Now, when it comes to their best friend, Afghanistan considers Turkey their best friend. They've cooperated with each other peacefully for over 100 years, and there's an old Afghani saying, no Afghani was ever killed by a Turkish bullet, and no Afghani trained by a Turk ever betrayed his country. So in conclusion, I guess this is the last segment, never mind. Putting aside all of the modern day controversies, Afghanistan is actually a very beautiful country with a very rich and vibrant, yet often hidden cultural and historical past that very often goes overlooked. And that's our objective here at Geography Now. We want to shine light on the obscure and put on display the often neglected yet fascinating attributes of every region of the world. We hope you did you justice. Stay tuned. Albania's coming next.
Ooh, Albania. That one might be fun. Yeah, so I do want to do it in order. I think that would be cool. Because I wouldn't even think to learn about Albania. Like, it's something I wouldn't even consider. I've been trying to learn more about geography for a little while now, and it doesn't necessarily come naturally to me, but I think a series like this, incorporating this into the channel as kind of a regular thing, would do wonders for me. Not just improving my GeoGuessr scores, although I hope it does that as well, but hopefully actually genuinely helping me understand and empathize with different groups of people a little bit more. That's what I'm hoping for. So if you guys like these, let me know, and I definitely want to do more. If you have any other geography related videos and stuff, let me know that as well. I want to broaden the channel beyond history and cover the social studies spectrum. You know, we have so many different subfields in underneath the whole social studies thing that it would be a shame if we just did history. I want to learn more. I want to be pretty well-rounded as far as social studies goes. So we'll see where we go with this. Clearly, Albania. We're going to Albania. So that'll be really cool. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow with some more videos. All right.